Probably
so.
still discussing.
Yeah.
College. The college presentation.
I read about it.
Right.
There's,
You should. I don't know if you're tracking the progress. Landed in a
Yeah.
our morning.
Good. Yeah, and don't hesitate to, let me know or I'll be happy to chat.
Yeah, since our salary is on the trail.
I think the real test for you, the kind of litmus test, is when you come back and take the exams.
Oh. Yeah, it should be fun.
Well, and I joked with Zoe, if you should.
Yeah, this is.
yeah, it picks up quite a bit.
Okay, all right.
You're
okay.
Forward
meeting or
something.
Do you all know each other?
We did. Yeah. Hi, Jennifer. Julia, nice to meet you.
I'm sorry.
Francis Willett, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Thanks for
you.
coming.
Jennifer, I think you're an artist, right? Can you help us?
Yes.
Yes, I bought some of your artwork.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
I thought you would.
Yeah.
Thanks, Samir.
Maybe you show your artwork. I'm sorry, but so great. I showed them.
Are you good? Just need to. And then like the next one.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Can I text you?
It's a great show.
Because our, you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah. Messaging us online.
Oh, did you? The only thing I was glad to say there's a huge tab. I'm sure really anything. And so the only way that I've been nervous about was because I had to work with a
Start?
And, my friend who's the guidance counselor, Hannah, she's like, who's a great online resource, go there and have a whole schedule about what you have to do. And so I went there and printed it all out.
Long.
This is really good.
I think we will start.
Okay.
Sorry, having a side conversation.
Quite all right. It's nice.
Popcorn.
With the important thing.
So obviously,
Popcorn or popcorn?
we're live streamed, so we're doing this obviously in an effort to try to get more remote information out to parents, people that can't come to campus. So thank you for coming. Moderating meeting on camera, being broadcast out to the internet, but we're next to knowing we're actually trying to do some pilots of this and see if we can get back to do things on campus to get parents to be involved with the physical.
Great idea.
Thanks for beginning.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited about everything that VAPA has done this year and is planning for next year. And so this meeting is important because we need to elect officers for next year. And I'm pleased that Francis has agreed to do it again. Way to go.
I'm not running away.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Francis. And that also Vaughn Hennon has agreed to be the VP, which is also very exciting.
Hi, everybody.
He's here. And we do have an open position of secretary in case anyone is interested.
Or if you don't.
Yes. So I think because we're electing you, we need to do a motion for the election. So I'm not a parent,
So do I motion that we, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, a motion for the election of officers, currently Francis as president and Vaughn Hennon as vice president. And we'll take any
Yeah.
Speech now.
We'll take any nominations from the floor for
I
secretary.
nominate Francis for president and Rob for vice president for next year's.
Excellent. And any discussion?
Thank you.
Sorry,
Congratulations.
my wife just said I second.
Aw, Rachel was so nice. Any nominations from the floor for secretary?
I think
All right,
vice
so we should
president can
vote?
also be secretary.
By default.
Oh, Marty, I'm sure he'll thank you later.
That's kind of one of his strengths.
So shall we vote all in favor?
Yes.
Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, great. It appears that it has passed. Congratulations. Yeah. Phew. All right, so now I will hand the floor over to our newly elected president once again. Yes,
So-
congratulations.
Thank you. One of the things that was probably the biggest challenge for me this year is not only getting a gauge of like where the current state of the school is, but also the parents and obviously the voice of the parents becomes very loud when certain things and certain events happen. So, but one of the biggest pieces I started to change and we put together are the subcommittees that we'll talk about. But also, I have a draft of bylaws that I'll be sending out that I had Richard Stark, Melanie, and myself have been working on it for the past couple months. Richard Stark's on the board of trustees, but he reviewed them. Jeff Sedenster reviewed them. So I have a good draft that I'm going to send out to the group and send out to the parents to, or at least the core committees to review. Some of the biggest things are just getting current. They were last done, I think, 2011 or so. This whole direction of how the parents are involved in DA has dramatically changed since then. So the positive thing I see out of that is it's going to dovetail into pushing us to do more events, bringing back multiple times that parents can come on campus. This is a great start. I mean, to have you here, and I thank you for making the trip because trust me, I was nervous on Thursday when we heard this SVP sort of just only me and my wife. She had a lacrosse game, so she couldn't be here. But my goal here is to prove to not only us that we can do it, to get more remote involvement. And it's not hard. It's not really a heavy tech lift for us to do it, but it's not hard enough burden on the staff because ultimately this is a small core teacher staff that pulls things off and will do the yeoman's work with it. But also to show the school that the decisions aren't made by 10 parents that show up or 40 parents on a parents' weekend that show up. The conferences and things like that. And we have over 100 parents worldwide that want to be able to have that time and some FaceTime with the school. So I'm hoping this takes off. It's going to take baby steps. Like you were telling me that you did this at a former school and it was 10 the first time and now hundreds as you go through it. And it's one of the biggest benefits. And I see that here for VA as well. That we can do that.
So just to clarify, is your hope that next year we'll have another fall weekend and spring weekend?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
planning on another spring parent weekend?
My challenge with this, and I like being fully transparent, positive or negative, it's just the way it is, but schedule here at VA was already defined before I took the president's seat. So all the weekends that could have been available already had certain things assigned. And as you get into April, it was shocking that there wasn't really an open weekend in April and March, obviously, you lose the whole month of March with being spring break. So that really left, 2 weekends, trustee weekend, last weekend, and this weekend for something to come together. And then obviously the arts weekend was really well established by then. So, I'm super proud of the work that you guys have done on the arts committee because it allowed us to show not only the arts teachers that we weren't going to interrupt their plans and that it was a twofold process that we could get parents to come to the shows and attend the weekends and come up here and still accomplish some of the things that we wanted to do.
Can I just make one suggestion, Francis? And I've been making this for the last few years. I really, really think we need to have conferences in the spring.
Agreed.
And I think it's one of the few schools that doesn't have that, and that would bring people here.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like you have this conference in the fall,
Right.
and then you're basically relying on your kids and then the reports until the following fall. So I know that's been an ongoing
Yeah.
dialogue, but to me, that's the way to solidify getting people here. Because
Absolutely.
everybody wants to meet with the teachers.
Absolutely. And now I'm going to tell you, I did try, and we did have a good dialogue, honest dialogue. It's not going away, and I think that the folks that had reasons for pro and con of why they could and couldn't do it, and obviously everything going on this weekend, but we're not backing off. It's
I mean, I think for all of us, you want to know
Yeah.
how your kids are doing, and you don't want to just read a little blurb about it or see the grade. I think the best way for us to support our kids is to know exactly what's going on. It's
I
not
do
just to
think you
get,
might have a better chance, because that makes total sense.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
and we were talking before about carrots and sticks, and carrots work way better. And
Yep.
so parents are gonna obviously make the trip if they know it's an opportunity to
Absolutely.
interact, with the staff.
I think it leaves people
faculty.
on a high note too.
Exactly.
Because I know that I have always left conferences feeling so confident
Do you
about the
think you,
teachers.
given now that you have a year essentially to set it up, that some of the pushback or barriers might be less?
I think, yeah, I personally feel, and again, this is just my crazy way of thinking about it, but I just, I honestly believe that by proving this and proving that we have a larger board to all have the same sort of unified message that this is important, we'll make change. It's going to take us a good period of time to just schedule it and get the structure established. But I look at it as last family weekend, we only had 40 families come. To me, 40 families out of 180 or 196 or whatever that we're at now is not giving you the teachers are only, doing a certain number local, but we have to have a better way of getting it across the board. And I mean, for me, I'll sit in front of a computer and look at a teacher and talk, or look at the teachers and talk about it. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, we rocket fire 15 minutes through each teacher at the thing, so it's not a hard lift. I just think it's a scheduling and organization piece that we just have to make it structured so that it'd be easy for them to pull off the volume. Because again, as you know, doing 40 in a weekend is one thing, but I think that's some of the scary piece of it is that they're trying to figure out, am I going to have this spread over weeks? So we're all going to tackle that. I'm not going to give up. I don't find not having it as an acceptable answer. And I can tell you right now that my goal as president this year is that we will have 2 full weekends. We will have 2 full opportunities for us to have fundraising efforts and obviously things that help support the annual fund and the 1 day for EVA. I just think a stronger parent board is going to help the school all around. And, I think we really have to get tighter with the alumni component because I look at this as a multi-year process. You're accepted students, the work that we've been doing as a small group with the acceptance for the ambassadors, the admissions ambassadors and the families that around the country that have volunteered to meet with prospective students. That has really transformed Dave Hodgson's team with the admissions process and then the acceptance students day. We have the panels where they get to speak to some of us who come up, but also have access to folks that are all around the country again so we get their names and we reach out to those folks. So,
I thought it was wonderful. I mean, I have another starting in September, and that Acceptance Students Day was amazing.
yeah, they really.
And the pairing up of the students with Lucy, the young woman who was paired up with Lucy, never left her side. She was so positive, and Lucy was, I love it here.
But
So-
I really echo too, again, I mean, I remember the first year at the end of the year being like, what do you mean I'm not seeing the teachers?
Right.
Like, we met at the beginning of the year, I need an end of the year meeting. I need to hear the wrap up of the year and thinking about over the summer, what I need to be doing to support my kid to be successful. So, and I understand for staff, it's hard to do one more thing, but I think that the gain is gonna be so, exactly what you said too, to end the year on the positive, even if a kid is struggling, okay, what is our summer support, that face-to-face is critical.
And having the
cannot say
connection
enough
with the
about it.
teachers in a different way.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
not feeling like there's a drop off. And then, and I think that it's not just about the conferences, it's also about people feeling connected to the school. So if you feel like the investment is in your child, teachers are taking time to meet with you again, you go into the summer going, what can I do for the school? I love this school. You know, that every conference I've left with the same feeling, and I'm sure most people do. It's just like you feel the commitment. So go into the summer feeling the commitment, because we're going to be asking a lot of people. And I think it pays back to all the fundraising 10 times over.
And you know this better than anybody. I mean, you know, in my own university, you know, a major focus of what I do and organize is philanthropy and fundraising. And you always want to hit on a high, you know, in terms of emotional high. And that's the most likely time to get folks to feel like they're connected and want to. And so having 2 times a year where you can plan that and then plan your, you know, sort of giving approach, like for example, the one day for, you know, VA was great and there were emails and stuff, but why that day? You know, it's kind of like, whereas if one day for VA came twice a year, you know, fall day for VA, spring day for VA came twice a year after the parents were all here and had a positive, you know, interaction, et cetera. I think you'll see a bigger spike, you know, in terms of.
Absolutely.
It's a really good point.
Is there, I think timing is one of the things that we struggled with this year, not just, well, primarily this year because of schedule, but also we did have a conversation about what time of year would be good and best for both parents and faculty. The very end of the year is very difficult for faculty, and also, you know, the senior parents are coming in basically 2 weeks. So we were, you know, concerned about that. Is there a time that you think would be ideal? You know, forget about what the schedule is.
Fundraising activity?
No, the conferences, which should.
It's always time for fundraising.
But what about right after this 3rd trimester starts, so that if anybody needs extra support, everybody's in on it? The weather's nice enough that people can get here easily.
I was going to suggest maybe right before the break starts, because you're finishing that 2nd trimester and they have 3 weeks to kind of think about it.
Right.
I don't know if that's a good time, because maybe people are like, you know, going off and vacationing and the borders are going back to their
Just sort of
countries.
broadening it a little bit from a scheduling perspective, March and April would be the prime spring months to look at, because
Before or after the break.
it sets you up enough that you're.
If you push so far into the 3rd trimester, is there time to do anything about it?
No.
Yeah.
So do we want
that's the
to
other
pull
thing.
it back into the 2nd trimester or very end of that, where you still have a 1/3 of the year to say, you really screwed this up and it's time to fix it, and you've got this much
Or even
time
at
to do
the
it.
end of winter sports, I'm sorry.
No, I think it's
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
time.
Like the
same
winter
time.
banquet
But that's March and
weekend.
April, because the
Yeah, right before
winter sports end
And
the end of February, beginning of March if they're in playoffs. The 2nd trimester ends just before spring break. And so the only way you're going to get it in March is if you do it towards the end of the 2nd trimester before spring break, because spring break takes you essentially to the end of March, or early April. And it depends on your goal for the 2nd parent-teacher conference. If the goal for the 2nd parent-teacher conference is to somehow make a course correction for that year, then obviously you want to have it where you still have time to make a course correction. If the goal for the 2nd parent-teacher conference is really planning for next year, that is, what do we need to do to carry this momentum? It's before course selections are finalized, in terms of is you know, the teachers are making this recommendation, is that, you can have some questions about, is that really the right fit, et cetera, and then what do we need to do to get ready for next year? Then you have a little more flexibility. You
If
can
there's a
bleed into
secondary goal
April.
to take advantage of the high and ask people for money, if you do it just before spring break, by the time they come back and actually think about it, the high is gone.
That's right.
So you have about
That's
a
true.
5-day period.
Yes.
So.
I actually would advocate, I actually think this timing is great. For personally, I think, again, I like the beginning of the year, end of the year kind of wrap up thing. And for seniors, their families are coming, they don't, I see the spring weekend as for freshmen, sophomore, and junior families.
And acceptance, I mean, I even dabbled with inviting back the acceptance students
Sure.
or the
Yeah.
contracted students.
Enrolled.
Because you enroll.
Well, that
So,
was
yeah.
why I wanted to come, really, Francis, because I wanted to see what the dean, like the.
If you did May, though, again, I would do it last weekend
Right.
as opposed to this weekend,
Right.
just because trying to think a little bit about what's happening with the faculty, et cetera. You know, we're 2 weeks away from graduation right now, and that's a lot of stuff to be going on all at once. So, you know, March, April, and the very first weekend in May are probably prime time to solve all those
Yep.
sort of mutually related interests, but not burden the faculty.
I think the end of winter the winter term is a tough time.
Yeah.
I really do, because kids are just ready to leave. The faculty is doing finals. I really would tend more toward. Weather can be an issue. I would tend more toward the start of April, because I think they're back, they know they've got this home stretch. I actually think there is an opportunity to course correct, even if it's early in April. That's number one. Number two, you're getting into course selection as well, and this would be prior to that. And the other thing, and particularly for the faculty, is we're not looking for something like the fall weekend, which is a big deal for the faculty, where they're trying to put together a 20-minute course to give you a little flavor for it. No, we don't really need to go
You
through
visiting classrooms.
visiting classroom. We don't really need to do that. We just need to talk to the teacher, and that could be done face-to-face, and it could be done electronically quite easily. Okay, at 10, you're talking to,
That's what they do.
Well, no,
No.
schedule it so that they know that I think one of the biggest challenges is this rocket fire in Shep, where they're literally, it's like speed dating.
Yeah.
And I think the speed dating model is great, so you go, like, really only doing 40 families, so they're
Oh, you're
looking,
saying if we had a bigger,
if you had a bigger volume of people, but you also give them the ability to do it.
But as you said, that there's no need, you're absolutely right, there's no need for us to go to classes.
No,
You know,
no,
and so
no.
if instead, you were scheduled as a family to go to meet with your students' teachers and had a set amount of time, and you can fix that time depending on how many people there are.
It doesn't have to be at Shep, it could be in their classroom, it could be in
Yeah,
their
and,
office.
and we don't have a problem
Anywhere.
with walking around to wherever they are,
Right.
and just show up, have some time,
Right.
sit down, have a conversation, doesn't need to take that long, and then you move on to the next.
and for those who can't, it could certainly be supported with technology. Okay, at 10 o'clock,
You literally
it's-
click on a calendar invite and
I-
it starts.
I
And it's-
know.
They all have the same computer, they all have the same ability,
yeah.
just like this is.
And I think that way you broaden that participation. That then is going to lay the foundation when 2 weeks later, you come up with one spring day for everybody.
And also when you're looking for re-enrollment and people are on the fence,
Well,
it's a reminder of how the teachers feel about your kids. And,
Right.
you know, and then it's like, you know what, why wouldn't I want to stick it out here? And
Well, I look at it as a retention because, I mean, I take myself into sort of an example, and I may be way off the spectrum, but this is a 4-year investment. And I look at every year when that contract comes in, I ask myself, did I get what I needed? Did Logan get what he needed out of it? Or did my son or daughter get what they needed out of it? And, you know, we have maybe a different viewpoint than what they are experiencing. But when you sign that contract, you're committed for the year. And from there on, you have to make that investment pay for next year. You know, I have to start thinking about what are they getting, like we just read the college counseling piece. I mean, you know, those services validate that we are getting what what
the
we expect out of
investment,
this.
yeah.
And I
So I
think,
have to say that I was really shocked that there were only, most of us at this table at that meeting.
at the college.
At the college meeting. Because that seems like that's such an important part of.
There's
why-
another one though, Jen, the one that we went to in the fall, which is you'll go, you know, to that,
Yeah.
it's packed.
yeah,
So this is a little maybe premature for
Well,
people.
and it was probably hard for people to, at this short notice,
Right.
get
Right.
here.
agreed.
But it does seem like, I like Wendy's idea of the beginning of spring semester, having some sort of event. What I'm hearing people say is that you want not only the support of the student to get the parents here, but the connection to the school.
Absolutely.
And I think the arts part of it is fantastic,
Yeah.
showcasing the arts. I mean, maybe you make it more about the sports and the arts and less about
Yeah.
the classes.
So one disadvantage the school has from other schools that have a major event for parents is, and I'm not saying you should get one, but the lack of a football team, because
Oh.
there's usually a homecoming that occurs, and that's a big sort of deal for alumni and for everyone, and another, obviously, an opportunity for philanthropy and fundraising. But you have some other really good popular sports here that could be leveraged as something too. And so looking into how can there be an event around one of the other popular sports, and this allows you a little bit more freedom. It could be a fall sport, winter sport, or spring sport, to do something around a home event for that sport, to try to gather folks and have some events around the event, to sort of, again, think about your own experiences with whatever you felt connected to. There's a certain culture that you try to establish among everyone that makes you feel bonded to the thing that we want people to be bonded to, and you want to try to capture that connection.
Yeah, we looked at actually now talking with Lexi about establishing the home game schedule for that weekend, or the weekends that we stake in the ground that are going to be family weekends, and have all the home games be scheduled for that is VA Day. And like some of the other schools, like Deerfield has a Deerfield Day, and Choate Day, and that type of thing. But, so where you're playing that team, scheduling it where it's actually like a KUA Day and VA. So, but I think coming up with a way of scheduling it so that, you
All the teams at the
have it
school.
stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that day or
Well,
home
I mean,
games.
I think that just the last thing that I want to say about the conference part of it, I think that aside from all outs, hearing once again that the teachers really know your child. I mean, I would say every time I've left a conference here, I can't get over how well the teachers know my child. And that's the best feeling of all. Whether they're doing well or they're struggling, it's just that they've keyed into their strengths and weaknesses. And that's what I feel people are committed to. It's not the building, it's really that connection with the teachers.
And we talked about it in the trustee meeting, that the more parents and alumni and prospective parents spend on campus, when we graduate here, there's a feeling in your gut that never leaves. When you walk on campus, you walk through your buildings. I mean, 30 years ago was the last time I was in that second floor of Proctor. When you sit in that room and you just sit there, and that feeling never goes away. So I think the parents that are here, they see that caring and that direction that is out of this faculty, that the staff, that I think that just is all tied into it. So, I appreciate the feedback, because I think it validates what I've been saying.
Thank you
God.
for fighting the fight, because I do think
Well,
it's a critical.
I have to be fair. It hasn't been, it was more of, I had the thought that it was super easy, just like, this was sort of, in my mind where we would start, and then realize when the term speed dating came out, it didn't really, because, as a parent, you just go through the 15-minute schedule and you get what you need, you get that, you walk away, but you don't realize that there's still 18 hours worth of speed dating that they still have to go through. So the design of it, I agree that we have to dramatically change it to make it so that's better structured for them.
Or just operationally, the remote conferences don't have to be that same weekend.
Absolutely.
It's
true.
Yeah.
There's no
Right.
magic that all has to be, that you could do
Same
it,
day.
you could do it the weekend after.
Right.
Yeah.
And then.
It doesn't even have to be on a weekend.
Right.
It could be
It could be
as
just.
they have the
Yeah.
time in their schedule. If
Yeah.
the parents can't, for whatever reason, they're in Europe or what have you, the Asia, or just couldn't make it, the teachers can schedule it at their convenience in front of a Skype. It could be anytime.
absolutely.
That would be just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
To say that we're offering this service, and we encourage you to come. We've got all these activities, but if you can't, you're still going to be able to talk about your son or daughter.
And I'm sure we could take the scheduling tool that we do to do the speed dating structure and design it in which it's tied right into the teacher's Google Classroom so that, and
Maybe you could
people
spread
just.
it out for the teachers.
The
Yeah.
key there, though, is we need to have something that is attractive and a carrot for the actual event, because you don't want to kill attendance at the event. And I think it's a great idea for us to give them that option to do it outside of the event. But you want to try to structure it in such a way that you're not only encouraging, but you're really encouraging and directing the actual attendance. However, for those that can't do it, there is another option, and maybe it's the other option isn't as vocally advertised as the main option, but more available to folks that can't make it.
I agree
Just-
with that.
Should be
Yeah.
more broad.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't know, I'm being a student parent, I don't have any idea how many parents actually come, like, bring their kids back or pick them up, like, like, how many people are bringing their kids back at the start of spring or after spring break, because they're here. And I can just imagine, like, if someone said to me, like, I just drove 4 or 6 hours or whatever and dropped my kid off, and now you're gonna come back 2 weeks later, I'd be just like, no, thank you. You know, because I don't know how big a group that is, or if there's an opportunity to build around the time.
We were up here
Every
almost,
week.
we were up here almost every
Well, it
weekend
does
during
seem
hockey
like-
season, either here or New Hampshire, back and forth, sometimes in the same day, 10-hour day.
But it does seem
3
like
hours.
there's not as many people. I think you're thinking, there's not a lot
Well,
of
if
people
you
that
can
are
get
doing
people
that.
when they're already somewhere, it's so much easier than trying to get them to come to something else.
But I think there's, if you look at Keelan's scheduling people for transporting, there are so many
Most
kids
people
that are doing, they're doing their own transportation. The parents physically don't come here.
Right.
Yeah, for the
which-
breaks, yeah.
Right, for the breaks.
It's a great point, but I think that in and of itself, that is the hurdle that we collectively, because we did show up for this weekend, have to figure out how to get over.
Right.
Because
We can.
there should be no reason why a parent thinks it's a hassle to come here, even if they've been here 2 weeks before.
That's true.
There has to be something that is worth the connection. And part of this, and we've spoken about this,
It's a partnership.
is communication. And the communication is getting much better, but I can tell you there, if we had followed the absolutely toxic input from, and are there any senior parents here? From some of the senior parents on the
Yes.
hockey team, we probably wouldn't be here. And that kind of communication exists only when there's a vacuum of positive communication.
Right.
And if we do a much better job of communicating value around why you should be here and not allow rumor and things like that to sort of fester, I think you're going to have this place crowded with people each time you have one of these events.
And trust me, that's the plan. I mean, you probably have seen, we're very active on the Facebook page. I think this is new with the the YouTube piece of it, and I think teachers are starting to see that we're not, the way it used to be is not the way it's going to be. Jennifer's doing it, Melanie's doing it, and the new director of communications coming. The director of enrollment, I expect, is going to have sort of some new, fresh ideas. So there's, you're a new coach. I see some great things coming out of him. I think each of the teams has their own sort of social media presence that we joke about. Like they have their own, group following. I mean, the freestyle team has their own groupies that are kids all across, the New England area. They watch the kids that are. Taylor's got his own little following, so it's pretty impressive to see that if you actually organize that, the momentum that the school will have as you won't be able to measure.
The other thing we do, I work in healthcare, and what we do, and what is happening more and more in healthcare, and I don't know if it's true in education and such, is that we have these online patient communities, because we always want patient input and patient feedback, right, on design of units and educational materials and just everything, right, about how you're doing things. And it's, so one of the ways that a lot of organizations are doing it now is creating these online communities, which are asynchronous. Once a week or every other week, we post questions, we post polls. People can choose specific topics or projects they're interested in that they want to stick with for months.
Yeah.
And it's just a great way for people to, to participate again in this kind of asynchronous way that really works for a lot of lives and over distance and all of that. So just another
We've talked, because again, I mean, here we are, a table of 20 people, 15 people or less. We have to also use some of the technology that the school's invested in already, but doesn't fully utilize. And then my personal opinion is that to take the fundraising and our sort of organization of, rallying the parents, I've evaluated a half a dozen different programs that allow you to sort of automate that, but also not, I don't want people handling cash. I mean, obviously for certain things we would do, but it gets to the point now where, in this day and age, we have a financial CFO that is, to this date, trust me, I've tried to stump the fan with him more times than I can count. And every single time, not only does he have an answer, he has a plan of how and why. Jeff is a phenomenal resource that I'm so glad that I, and the reason why I didn't have a treasurer role in bylaws and going forward is we have a fiduciary responsibility, but also with the tax laws and 501(c)(3)s and all the sort of rules now, I don't want to have to worry about it. I want to be directed. These are your boundaries. You can still fundraise within these boundaries. And he's fully supportive of the, trying to bring, maybe the technology of Give Campus is great for what you're doing for one day degree A, but maybe we need something that allows us to do more sophisticated fundraisers. People want to be able to put their credit card in. And, I see the auction component being more automated than the 20 of us driving around New England trying to get, auction gifts and donation gifts, that to automate that piece of it and make it easier for us to manage it.
I have to say, I never heard about the auction thing. I remember going into one of those things and again, maybe I get too many emails, but I was like, I would have given something,
Yeah, no,
So I didn't hear
This
about
year, we had the silent auction in the fall, it was basic. And I'm really excited, Dudley, that you've offered to help. I know we have, some other folks, who's with you, Lee Hodkin, and then obviously I know there's others that have experience that want to help. So I really think that we have a huge opportunity to decide when that auction fundraising component needs to be. Obviously, the fall time is more dedicated for a Saturday night event piece. It would be harder, I think, if we did it in the spring, if we aligned it with the arts weekend, but we could figure that out. And we have a whole calendar to define for next year. I'd rather stake the ground now, put our heads together, and define what that's going to be, and then so that system that I'm talking about isn't cheap. I'm perfectly honest. It's like, just around $2,000 for it, but I look at it as it's a campus investment, not just a VAPA investment. But VAPA is going to be the Kickstarter for it, for lack of a better term. So one of the things that we've been talking about is, our budget has been very small. And a lot of parent donations come in during the year where people want to give, but it's not enough to actually run the organization in this vision that, we've laid out with the committees and the different programs. We've done 5 things this year, all have been super valuable. The Hennams and the Arts Committee has done a phenomenal job this weekend, and eye-opening as far as just the short amount of money they've raised in 2 nights or 3 nights or whatever for the arts group. I want you to give a report on that too in a second. But it just showcased to me that, the kids walking up with a sheet and saying, I want $1 for a soda and $1 for popcorn, and it's billed to the account, that, those sheets were full. And again, the parents are going to get surprised when they see the fee, but
$2 though.
exactly. So, but I think, the concept of the kids will go to the events if they have have that ability, but also parents, there's a lot of parents in there most likely. So what we talked about, and it's part of the bylaws, and I wanted to be clear here, is we're now taking VAPA into sending a volunteer group of 15 crazy parents to, there will be a fee associated to the contract in September where $50 is basically the fee that will be paid by all parents. And all parents have basically a vested interest in not only supporting VAPA, but also supporting the programs they do. This fee is not considered to be a donation. It's literally a fee that's a part of the sort of the time here, tuition. And our goal here is basically have a baseline to start the year. Now, I envision, and again, I have 8 years to do this. I'm sorry, honey, but we do. And, but, between my son Logan and my son Aiden, we do commitment for 8 years. It's a long period of time to be invested in the school. You guys as well. And I think there's a lot of parents like that. You have kids that are prospective, and you may not want, one will go, but another one may not. Just in general, I mean, if you have a parent here for a period of time, I think it's a great opportunity for us to get them in the mindset of, I am investing in this program, in the parent association. So this will be, the way we read it in the bylaws, and I'm sure you'll see it, it's clearly stated that it's, if a parent or Jeff Seaton identifies that a parent or family can't afford that fee, he has the ability to waive it. And if a parent, we do a rolling admission, that if a student comes in January, it's going to be prorated. So we've set it up, Jeff has set it up, I should say, talked to him about my idea, and he's the one that's executing, said this is how you need to spell it out, so it's fair, and it's not like people feel like you're getting, dinged with another fee and another fee and another fee. I think it's a fair number, and I think what it does is, if we, you do the math, if we do 180 kids, it's a good starting point. It basically doubles what our current budget was this year. We had, for expenses, our account is right down just shy of about $500 left in the budget. But what we did with that was, obviously, we did the 2 appreciation breakfasts, which really were a huge hit with the faculty, where, we basically have a breakfast for their morning meetings. This spring one kicked off Teacher Appreciation Week, so we had to do things with that. The Spring Arts Weekend was, a huge success from what I'm seeing. But we also need investment in those key things that they couldn't have or budget for the spring weekend currently, because obviously when you design a new weekend, there's certain things that this team came to me and came to Melanie with, as far as it was like a list of 6 things: T-shirts, the popcorn machine, obviously the refreshments, I can't remember all of them. The photographer, and obviously we compromised. We said, look, we're going to do half the T-shirts, and the other half would be billed. We buy the popcorn machine, and for a $280 investment, it was amazing. And I'd like you guys just talk.
Do you have a sense, really important in terms of, having this as a fee, because literally then you get buy-in.
Correct.
Because people, there should be something that every parent, even if they can't afford the 50, I would even say it doesn't get waived, even if it's $1.
Right.
50 cents, whatever a person can afford, you want that buy-in to take place, because they're still as much a part of the parents' association.
Absolutely.
Whether, and so there should be something, and everybody can make something happen. The second is, what exactly, do you have a sense at this point, and you may not, what is the budget you think you need for the Parents Association to be successful? Because that's going to be a part of it, obviously the fee that's paid, but then there can be other ways of funding what you need as a budget, or what is decided upon by the leadership of the Parent Association for a given year. So do you have a sense of what that is?
Yeah, so obviously the 2 breakfasts, the Spring Arts Weekend, and we have the Spring Fling, where we have Ben and Jerry's coming in for essentially a 200-person ice cream social. And so it's a cup and cone party basically through Ben and Jerry's. So that total basically exhausted, with a $500 buffer, our $5,300 budget for this year. So, and that's just those 4 programs. I'm looking that if we start doing the multiple family weekends, the auction, those components, I look at, and obviously the software to run them, the system to run them of the campus. And I don't think, my delusion is that, VAPA is probably going to have to take the lead on it the first go around, but then once we start getting really a good fundraising effort, I would look at that $5,000 to $10,000 budget being our buffer, meaning we have a really bad year, all the parents revolt, the Fuller Hall gets burnt to the ground. I mean, it's just, the bottom line is,
You paint quite a picture.
we literally have to,
Yeah, right, no,
you have to look at it as, we have a whole core.
Well, as a firefighter, I know you went to the
But-
full of burning down.
But you know what I mean, but if you go to a complete reset of parent association, you have to start with something. And that was one of the biggest challenges that I had with taking it over from Lori and Wendy was what they had to do just to get to the point where they were doing it. And I've taken it to a little bit, farther than that.
We all really didn't have any.
Right,
We didn't even know what the account was or.
right.
Well,
So,
can I just
Yeah.
interject for 1 second,
Yeah.
Francis? Because one of the things you mentioned, the ice cream social, and I don't know if you remember, we had that
last year.
girl come.
Yep.
And I think that one of the things you want to keep in mind, and I've stressed this, and there are day student parents here, when you have an ice cream social or something over the weekend, you're losing your day school population.
Right.
So when we had the ice cream truck come, it was a girl who was at Babson. That's what got her into college. She started this business.
Yep.
So she was a great person who was actually willing to come and talk to the students about starting your own business, which is something Jennifer's talked about, entrepreneurship. But we had her come the first few days of school. So it was once parents left, she was here set up on campus for the first day of classes, and the weather was gorgeous, but it was for everybody.
Right.
So I think that's something that you need to be mindful of, is that by the time the weekend comes along, for a lot of day students, they're not coming. They're not, so you want to make sure that
Yeah.
there's just a suggestion that was something that everybody felt committed to. And when Lucy went on her tour, the girl who had no idea that I had
Right.
planned that said, the best thing we ever had was the girl who came with the ice cream truck. Because it involved everybody. And I think that you want the day student parents
Absolutely.
to feel like their kids are involved. And I know from my opinion,
The day students want to feel involved.
they want to feel a part of it, and they're not looking to come back on the weekend for something because they're ready to be in their own bed and they're tired. And
But they won't come back because the activities on spring clean.
they really, I think that it's
Unless they back up to when they have to be here for school
right.
or
They're
sports.
so happy to be home and in their own bed that I
And the
think
parents don't want to drive again.
it's not even that. I mean,
The
it's
kids don't
not.
want to come,
Yeah,
the
they
kids don't
don't.
want to come,
They don't.
and the parents don't want to drive.
They want to have
So
a
if it's
day in
not-
their own space.
Okay.
And they're not forced to be here already. So I guess,
This is even true with evening events,
yeah.
because
they
if
don't-
they're done, like yesterday, my son, he was done at 3, right? The play's at 7:30, he's not staying, and he's not coming back. And so it's not like, because what's he supposed to do for 4.5,
Right.
5 hours?
Mhm.
Or we're supposed to drive twice,
Right.
like none of that's happening.
Right.
So if to really have the day students, it has to, the time frame has to go up when they're here.
Yes.
Or when they're
Can I
here
just
or
interject something?
immediately.
Because our son, who transitioned here in the fall, came from school where it was the reverse. You had 20% boarding, 80% day students. And so, when you have a boarding student, you have to provide, or we would like to see more things happening on the weekends for the kids because they don't have their families.
Right.
They can't go home to their beds. Their bed is here. And so what happened when he was at the other school was if he had things to do, well, he could eat dinner in the hall. He did homework. He met with teachers. He did things with his friends. So you can fill up those 4 hours.
Yeah.
If he wants to be part of the community, you kind of have to
And
do
most of
that.
the activities were on the weekend, Friday nights, things like that.
Yeah.
And the student body, 80% were not boarders,
Yeah.
came and engaged in those activities.
But then all of their friends were as well. So here, there is the basis of the community is the boarders. So they have their own community and the day students are the minority.
But the day students would be part of that community
They're
if they
just
were
not
participating
interested.
in the
I
activities
think
on
I
the.
guess that's the point, is that not to just digress.
Just to get to the answer though that I had asked
Why don't
originally,
you-
so you're looking for 5 to 10K a year is what you're thinking
That's
is the
my,
budget?
right now,
target?
low number is 5,500 a year.
And
High
10
number
would be
is
the
10.
high end.
10 would be if we were gonna do the events that I can see on the calendar next year, as I'm reporting to you next year, I would see we were probably going to be doing, and it's gonna fall out of her chair, probably twice as many of these things.
And when you talk to the CFO, and I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the flow of thought, but I had never got my question answered, so I just wanted to get closure on that. There's a purpose for it. So the 50 that you're aspirationally charging for parents to be a part of the association is essentially built into tuition. That can be, waived or adjusted. What is your estimate with the financial officer about what your yearly income would be towards that 5 to 10K budget, just based on that, the charge?
And that's where and I'm combining the fundraising and annual fund committee, because they're really part of, that committee is going to be responsible for essentially just overall fundraising. Fundraising being, not only for VAPA, but getting a group of parents support around, and obviously all of VAPA to support the multiple fundraising efforts. Some are going to be specific, VAPA specific, and some are going to be the one day for VA, and the other one is the annual fund. So, so my viewpoint is the fundraising committee would, bring forward ideas. We do want to bring back the auction, but again, I just look at the auction right now from what I've heard from parents from the past, that it's the way they've done it in the past is a huge manual lift. And that I wanted, the reason why is I'm looking at this one cause or, the other solutions is when you take out the component of managing money and managing the scheduling and the companies that invest products for the auction component itself, the management of the actual night is where the parents get to focus on, making it nice, those types of things. And again, I have Dudley and Lee, and obviously, if you'd like to throw your hat in the ring, I'm sure we'd love to help. But I think that the bottom line is I don't have that answer as far as where we can go. I just know that.
I didn't mean where it's math. So essentially what I was getting at is I don't know how many parents or students that you're looking at in terms of the number. And if it's 50 and then it adjusts somehow, what are you looking to get from that piece? So I can get a sense of.
It's about $11,000 to $12,000 right now, if you just did a straight 186.
Okay, so 11 to 12,000. So your budget of 5 to 10 is above that fee, is what you're looking to have above that fee?
No, it'll be below. I mean, right now, and that's just taking into account what we're going to potentially do in fundraising. I look at fundraising being completely separate because at a point in time, that fundraising effort's going to dramatically dwarf that number, and that number would
Totally
be
understood.
zero.
So it's like the money that's budgeted for the coming year is going to be completely covered, but the needs of that completely covered by this $50 fee.
Correct.
So when we're talking, what are the fundraising objectives for the coming year? That's just bonus.
Correct. That's my plan.
So you think, that's very important. So thank you. So
Sorry, I
you
didn't
think
make that
the fee will
Should
cover
cover.
the budget completely?
For
That
the 6
we
events
shouldn't
that-
have needs beyond the fee?
Correct.
Okay.
And
They
then,
will
and
need to.
And the family donations that we get, which is probably $5,000 to $1,000 roughly, there's parents that drop, basically send a check to VAPA during the year, and where they like the fact that, we got some donations from the spring teacher appreciation, where parents literally just sent a donation and saying, this is for VAPA, because they do such a great job. So, or they couldn't come and help. And I think that virally will happen. Having that, donate button on the website is something, it's like, a shiny thing that people will press eventually if you just, they'll just do it. So, so I looked at this model and thanks to Melanie, she gave me a bunch of different schools. I called, Suffield and Berkshire and KUA and North Mount Herman and Deerfield, and actually talked to their parent association presidents. And many of them, all, there was a few that were a little shocked, like they didn't want to give us their secrets. But I said, you already have your kids. We're looking to manage our kids, our parents better. So, but, perfect example is Suffield Academy raffles a $100 ticket Ford F-150 every year. And net after they pay for the truck and pay for the event to have this big, sort of that auction gala, they netted about a $200,000 endowment for the VAPA or the Parent Association, raised. And they do it every year. They've done it 3 years in a row. And it's just insane.
Those headline auctions are phenomenal.
It's insane.
6 numbered tickets, you even know what your budget looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, I do not claim to have the answer, but I know we can do 10 times more than what we're doing right now. And I think, I gave her a bunch of little snippet term to say, this is baby steps. This first year, I'm very pleased. It took me a while to sit again in my own mind that we had actually accomplished a lot. And it took my wife to actually tell me, write this stuff down, write what you all have done in a short amount of time. And even this weekend validated what the arts committee has done, because I think it's just a small group of us can really get this momentum moving a lot more than what we've done previous. So that's sort of the way I look at it. Like I said, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I'm also looking towards folks that have had experience doing it in the past. I appreciate Dudley being willing to step up because, again, that piece of it, that fundraising piece of it, I think we can develop a plan that we can manage. If we decide that we're not going to do it for the fall, but we're going to do it for whatever that date in the spring, then, I'm fully on board in figuring that out.
So I'm sorry to be
Yep.
mid-meeting.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No.
It's after 12.
I'm biased.
Are there necessarily any things we should?
Yep.
Sure.
No, I think, so what I'll do is, obviously, I'll, Marty and Vaughn, for the arts program, I just give a brief summary of what you guys have.
Well, I think we just, the school has kind of been doing a spring arts thing. We just tried to help support the staff, solidify it. Dudley helped with the poster and,
It
just,
was amazing.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think they would particularly sing.
it did, yeah.
And also the idea of verdicts is a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
great.
So I think we're just trying to support what already exists, which is a phenomenal department.
Can I just make a suggestion? Actually, my sister made this suggestion. I was talking to Amy Howard about it yesterday. What if each student chose a piece that they wanted to donate that went up for sale at the verdicts thing or whatever, and that money went to VAPA or went to the arts committee or something like that? So there's, I don't know, $1,000 that came to the school as, I don't know, what do you think of that?
I was expecting at the opening to have someone stand up and say, here's some envelopes, drop your money in
Right.
this bin. But it's something like that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just so that the kids could feel like their artwork
The
is
kids would have to be
great.
on board with that.
Right, oh, yeah.
Who would be the
The
right?
visual ones that I know so far would
Yeah.
all be on board with
Yes,
that.
it's real, and it's like someone bought my artwork other than my parents.
Right.
At least that we don't. I, all
Amazing.
but one, I know the kid, pick them out of a lineup and then they would, they would all do it. But in terms of organizing it, it would fall on us, we could do it.
Well, what
without
if
too
we
much
did it
effort.
online at the end of the school year, if kids wanted to, like end of year, maybe even an end of year wrap up, here's some of the artwork that's for sale, the money goes towards, the students have graciously donated this piece. And just see if maybe someone wants to buy it, maybe someone,
And that can even go online.
yeah, just totally
absolutely.
online,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
online, then parents can be able
And it
to, this is
doesn't,
what,
I mean, even a non-parent.
of
might buy
course,
something.
I'm telling you, the artwork is beautiful.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's just something to keep in mind as another way, and it also makes the students feel like, their artwork is worthy of the investment.
Will you follow up on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I wanted to find out along those lines is whether we can lock in verdicts in perpetuity.
I think it's a great
Say,
idea.
let's nail this. The
Yeah.
timing is perfect.
Yes.
I think they would definitely do it.
I know, you're looking at pretty much the month of May that show's hanging. It's perfect.
So
So,
you're looking
And
at
it's
diners
not-
coming to see their children's work.
Well,
I know we
that's-
reserve
that's-
tables under the paintings. I'm like, come on.
And is there VA material there too?
Yes.
Oh, good.
But
We
we
were
need
just
more. It
saying
needs to
maybe
be
we'll go to
replenished.
I have
Yeah,
it
'cause
in my office, I'm bringing it up.
It's amazing how quickly it went too.
Is
That's
it on?
amazing.
Yeah.
I snuck, I hung posters and I snuck through there and they were all going, we need more.
Okay, yeah, we have 100 more.
Well, Mother's Day is huge
Yeah.
there, so they do a
I'll do
huge
it
brunch
today.
for Mother's Day, and you can give it to me if you want. Jen and I are right there, you don't
Well,
know,
I have to, one,
unless you're going anyway.
no, but one student forgot his artwork so it was missing and I finally got it.
The way
So
this
that-
looks for it.
I think so. I wanted to talk to you about that. And then another student was begging if they could, it's a pottery piece, so.
I would love to be able to show something like that.
Yeah.
Verdicts may not be the right venue for
Well, it could break.
sculpture.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I'll show it
there
to
are
you
some
downstairs.
spots, if we could bring in a pedestal
Yeah,
and. make
well,
sure
I'll
it's-
show you, it's a little funky, so it's cool though, but yeah.
But the show downstairs is great too. It's well done.
I was just
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
I mean, part of the effort in the arts was to say there is real arts going on at Vermont Academy. And I think this could really be turned into something that would start attracting students who are interested in the arts. And, you know, you think about, I don't know, something online, a simple brochure. I mean, a kid coming here knowing that his artwork might be displayed at one of the preeminent restaurants, you know, in the area, or Saxton's River Inn, same kind of thing. I think might really,
Main Street Arts.
yeah,
Gallery.
just
Yeah.
a little bit more that says, hey, this is a special place to go because I can get my artwork displayed, not just at school for my parents to see, but so.
Shouting across the probably 15 art exhibit shows across the state that they've participated in, that no one knows about, unless the piece was there.
Right,
There might have been something that showed up on a
it's on Instagram
Instagram or
mostly,
something
yeah,
like
that's,
that, but
yeah.
there's a lot.
So-
The group also, I think, from my own perspective, one of the real benefits of having met with the arts faculty is the conversation that's begun. I think next year will be the one that really pushes things
Yeah.
forward.
Again, I think we all kind of, we got a late start, but I think we did the best we could with the time that we had and got the t-shirts made and got a picture of as many kids wearing the t-shirts.
It looked great.
You know, these little things that, again, I think what we realize is these little efforts make a big difference for the kids and for the staff. And
We've roughed out the web redesign, structure of the web redesign. It fits within the templates, so it's, you know, it'll all work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a handful of things like that. They're tossing around some calendar and promotional ideas to do things like recruit, at least regionally. It could be really cool.
So thank you for all your efforts. Obviously, it would be great to sort of get a summary we can push out to the committee of what your net was. And,
The popcorn machine was big.
who knew? I mean, that's just, but that's just so symbolic, like something that's so little, you know, could really gain that kind of excitement. So I'm sure there are other things we can do on campus.
But also knowing the replenishment piece of it, because we may decide that, you know, maybe Peter can get the supplies, or the supplies, and we buy the same machine for the Wildcat Den, and we have the one over in Horowitz. We buy one set of supplies, and it's just going to, you know, take simple things like
But I
that, or
think,
small
yeah, and I think
things that we can do.
Giving this, you know, it took us saying to the department, well, we'll go and ask VAPA for support, because they're like, we don't have any more money in our budget, we can't.
Right.
And so I think the more we get involved in other departments, and I do, before we wrap up, I want to put on our agenda, and I don't know the right form, but I want to support a different prom for the kids
I
next
agree, I was
year.
just gonna bring that
That's
up.
been a real disappointment, I think, this year, and I don't know.
That's funny you should say that, Marty, because Lucy was like, all I've ever wanted is to go to the prom, and I always say to her, you can reinvent it, just like make that your thing. And so Amy Howard said to me, she had graduated from here, that when she was here in the 80s, I guess it was, or whatever, there was nothing. And that year, there was a parent who was a photographer. They made it something that the kids were really interested in. And I know in Walpole, Jen could say, because she lives on the green, the parents come and decorate the town hall, and they create a theme. And I think it would take like VAPA involvement.
Yeah, I don't
But
know
it
who,
should
but we
be
gotta do
this,
something.
it should be something that, you know, the kids really, nobody should be like, yeah, you know, I mean, they should feel like it's embraced and it's fun. So how can we make it more fun, like you did with the popcorn machine? How could we make it
That
something
needs to
that
be-
everybody wants to be a part of? I totally agree.
I mean, it's not something we can pull off, because in the prom next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not by this year, but
Right.
just a
Next
plan.
year.
Although if I could, I would.
I know.
I'm telling you, I'm fired up, and I'm not. I do think it's an important rite of passage for high school
Yes.
students, and to be going up to the chalet Friday night is a big disappointment. So,
Who on campus manages, runs it?
Brian Galoran, yeah, that's, And my understanding is they went off campus last year.
They did, they went to
So-
Stonewall last year, which at least they left campus, but to not be leaving campus is really a big deal.
Yeah, I've heard that from my kids.
Well, I think it's also why a lot of them didn't sign up for it.
Right.
Oh, there's a lot who are going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's been an effort to try to
We
make
need a
something.
prom committee.
So-
Put it on the list.
Well, could that fall under the
Wheelchair.
Wildcat Pride
I don't know what it falls under, but I think we need to make it a priority.
or
I think
student
it'd be
life?
great. I think
Yeah.
they would welcome and help.
Yeah, well,
Um,
because everybody, as we've been saying earlier in this conversation, are
Yeah.
overworked, so maybe there needs to be,
So if,
A specific
I don't want to
team.
step on other people's toes,
No.
but if they
I
want,
think they'd be grateful, actually.
want that, to get involved, I personally think.
It's a lot of work to put it on, regardless of where it is. So I think having additional help and ideas is.
Well, there's also the Potato Barn in Walpole that has a
Oh, right.
beautiful space,
Yeah.
and maybe if it's for a school, they'd be willing to do it.
No,
for-
they do. The Bellows Falls had theirs
It's
there.
beautiful and
Yeah.
it's right around the corner, you know?
Check it out.
Mhm. Mhm. Have you ever seen?
heard of it?
They're doing
Yeah.
weddings there, they've gutted the whole thing. The Potato Barn is when you're on Route 12, like if you're, how do you describe where it is, Jen?
No, you're in Vermont.
It's
You're
in
going on
Walpole.
Route 12,
Yeah.
and it's part of the Walpole Inn, Bellows Inn, you go down.
Oh, yes.
It's on, but it's on the Route 12
Yeah,
side.
I know exactly where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge
It's
building.
quite a
Have you been
huge
inside?
building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge
It's
building.
right on
I've
this.
been in.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
pictures.
Anyway, if we can put that on the agenda for next year.
Yeah.
So my plan for just closing this out, I appreciate you guys staying. So obviously, we're already starting planning next year. My goal is to try to get a sort of a high-level, single-sheet schedule that we can all sort of start marking things down and planning for. My meeting, I know I wanted to be aggressive on meeting schedules for a month, but that didn't fly, so life gets in the way. But maybe quarterly, or we can, do a lot of stuff, over with Vaughn helping, it will be great. So my goal is to have some multiple remote meetings like we had before, where you can just Skype in or use the Google Meet. So my hope we can pull that off a lot more than we did this year. I know I fell down on that, but nice thing about the schools has a system that I don't, VAPA doesn't have to pay for. It's just, it's
One last question,
Yeah,
Francis,
so
because I see it on here.
Yep.
I don't know if you were gonna get to it, but we had discussed having grade representatives, because Lori and I volunteered for the 9th grade. I don't know how that's coming about.
So, work in progress.
Okay,
Not to get into the details of it, but the bottom line is, I see a dramatic change in how our student life and dean's structure office is going to change. And I see the grade representatives are going to, we're going to adjust to that. So I see good things coming out of that.
So you're hoping next year we will have grade representatives?
Better, I
Okay.
think we'll have better buy-in to where those parents can have that level of communication with those individual grade reps. Because, I think that there are individual deans that are very proactive with it, and others that that we don't have it. So I think it's going to be more consistent next year. I think the dean's office will be more in line with having those parent reps be a part of it.
yeah,
It's
well,
not
we
a-
were just thinking for 9th grade people coming in
Right.
to feel
It's
like
really
you've got a touch
Right.
person, for all of us that started, and, we've had each other to be like, what do I do about this? It's nice to feel like you're coming in, you have a clue of what you're doing
Yeah.
when you start,
So
I think.
one of the other pieces that the ambassadors have done is, small list of 6 to 8 ambassadors, but again, I think also, we know that we have, a prospective family that's coming in that's close to you guys live, or, or where I live. A lot of times we get them pulled in to just a phone call. And so we're doing a lot more effort with Dave around that. And I've done a bunch of calls because you had some kids that the parents were on the fence, whether they wanted to come or not. And just like the Prospective Students Day, what was the number? 15 contracts? 18 signed out of the people who attended that Acceptance Students Day. And that's really in this world of declining enrollment, which we unfortunately are in that same boat. that's the piece. It's a whole process.
I would just throw two things out. I totally agree with you. One is, we have no idea, and maybe this is on us, but we want to try to make it as low-hanging fruit as possible. We have no idea who lives around us that may be
Yep.
here. And so if we had a list of people from a geography perspective, there's a lot of reason to reach out to those folks, not only to welcome them to the community, but to think about car sharing and things like that,
Where
right?
do you live?
In West Harrison, New York, White
Okay.
Plains, so near the Tappan Zee
Started
Bridge.
in
Yeah,
Westchester.
Westchester.
I mean,
The other
My
is,
school app needs some work,
Yeah.
because it has that information in there.
I
but
can't
it's-
even log on to that
it's a-
thing. That is, it
Oh, I
won't
use
get
it.
me. Mary can, me it kicks out. It doesn't accept my password. I've tried to make new passwords.
Yes.
That's a separate,
Smart
that's an offline
application.
question.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was gonna say is,
Steve
from
wants to do something.
me to, well, I don't know why, and I'm pretty tech savvy, but it just will not let me log in. I think it thinks I'm an invader. It's got some sort of cookie in it. I don't know. But, sporting teams, so, prospective applicants that have not yet, signed their contracts, and clearly I have a vested interest in this, and I'm sure this is true across many of the sporting teams, but especially for hockey next year, where we essentially have to repopulate almost an entire team. I can tell you, as busy as I am, if I had a list of names to call, I would call those names. I would be calling the families and tell them about the positive experience we had this year and why we stuck with it. Instead of fleeing, to go another school with a kid who has aspirations of playing well beyond here, I would tell that story to others who were on the fence and why I have confidence that things are going to turn around. But I have no idea who those people are and how to be able to do that. And I can tell you that happened with us during the year. Someone further along, was reaching out and saying, not to worry, this and that. Big difference, big impact. And so I'm willing to do that. I just need the ammunition.
Great, that's great to know. Thank you.
Maybe as a secondary comment, because I wonder if there's value in really popularizing all sports that are here. Because certainly if, I look at Taylor, yeah, he had interest in when he came here, snow, sure, it was a top priority. Bicycling was a top priority. Now, he enjoys bicycling, but it's down the list. He's discovered all these other sports. And I think it is very much in line with sort of the school philosophy about discover what makes sense for you. It would really, rock climbing.
What do you mean by I don't understand.
No, like rock climbing,
What do you mean by popularizing?
letting people know.
All the other things.
Not just focusing on the big
On
sports.
big sports.
Can I just say something that just going back to the accepted students, that if whatever the thing is in the fall, if you could give your speech again, I'm not kidding. I love, didn't I tell you what, it was great, but there's certain, the press, I'm not going to speak for you, but it was just about how your son came in with this and he ended up doing this, and this.
Well, and there are probably 160, 180 stories.
Right, but it really makes a difference to hear
That
it.
would be very interesting, like a story core from students and parents, like story core. Seriously.
It would be really cool.
Right.
Well, what
because
about
that
before
tells
graduation,
your
some of the
story.
seniors doing
Oh,
this
yeah.
collection of seniors saying,
And a
when I
photo
came
booth
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And alumni students, because
Right.
that's what sells a school.
Yeah.
Personal.
Well, my niece just went on semester at sea and her roommate was a graduate from VA. Just randomly, and they lived together on a boat. But I think that if the seniors, their departing words were, when I started here, this was what I thought, and look what I've done, look at where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of inspirational to kids either transferring in or freshmen.
Don't they do, I think, don't they do that?
Part of the college essay program.
They do some
Yeah, but
memoirs.
this
Yeah, they do. I thought that they did do that.
online.
Yeah, but something to share
Real
on the page.
And I think your point is that though there is more parent power to access.
Yeah,
Because that's the message to get back to the staff is how can we help them?
yeah.
And
Force
let us know.
multiply, as part of the
Yeah.
communication thing especially, we're all really busy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all really busy. And I'm super busy. I have an hour and a half commute to and from work every day, and I have way too many things on my plate, but I am willing to sit down and phone bank. Whoever you give me as a list of people to
Right.
call, I am happy to do that. And I think you're gonna find that, or many, many people that are willing to do that, and empowering us to do it, I think will have big dividends.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
So I do appreciate those of you that made the effort to come physically, so it's great to have, all of you involved and get the word out. So if you have other parents that it really helps. And once we get your access working, I'll show you the map piece. And
Okay, very good.
we can help evoke change on how they
Thank
get
you
better.
so much for
Yeah.
everything.
Thank you.
Thank you guys
Thanks,
so
Lauren.
much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Thanks,
Mr. President.
Our lunch break before.
Yes, lunch, and then 1 o'clock, if you want to talk with the deans.
We'll